you very much. Hello, Copenhagen. Still awake just before lunch? Well, good to be back in wonderful Copenhagen. I was here a little more than a year ago speaking at the XP 2022 conference on, not on ways of working or agile or those kind of things, but actually on leadership. And just before the pandemic, I was here talking about ways of working. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about strategy. So who's into strategy? Yay! That's why we're here, right? Right? Who thinks strategy is a bit, hard and abstract and tricky? Yeah. It's not. It's quite fun, and it's not difficult. And if you visualize things, then it becomes much, much easier. And that's the story I will tell you about the coming 50 or so minutes. We use a nice tool. Tools are good, right? And they should be right tools for the job. And this is a really nice visualization tool that is called Wardley Mapping. And that was the secret sauce in this particular case. It's a story. It's about BigCorp. I cannot reveal any names. Protecting the innocent. So, story time. Yeah. I was expecting a little laughter there. This looks complex. In reality, it's not. You have a software engineering background or a computer science background. This is just a graph, a directed graph of dependencies. And that's what a Wardley map is. You can trace and track technology and business evolution with it. The question is, how do you get to something like this to help you guide your strategic choices from a business and technology perspective in 3 half-day workshops at BigCorp. That's the story. But also the story why use this visualization tool. I will dig into that a bit as well. Commercial break, or technical timeout, as they say in the US. Won't take long. This is me, or rather a younger version of me. I wrote a couple of books, The Art of Strategy and The Art of Leadership. I used to be a hacker back in the day, but then I'm back to writing code again, but this time I write LaTeX code to publish books. So that's like full circle. Done a lot of, management, leadership, executive roles along the way. Worked with companies like Ericsson, might be familiar, NetTet, online gaming company, Framfab, internet startup, probably forgotten. There was a nice office in Copenhagen back in the day. And currently with Erlang Solutions. I won't talk so much about Erlang Solutions because we have a booth at the conference. You can talk to me in all the breaks. We're a nice bunch of people. We're experts in Erlang, Elixir, and RabbitMQ. So please talk to me about that in the breaks. True story. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. The plot. 100-year-old big company, BigCorp. Multinational, European incumbent, the heroes of the industry, 20,000 plus employees. And a new strategy, 70-page slide deck. That's not where you want to be, I can tell you that. But it was good, there's a lot of information in there, but a strategy to me should be short, crisp, and give direction. Should not be a detailed Bible or 70-page slide deck. So the mission was to develop the necessary capabilities in this part of BigCorp, a very large and important part of BigCorp, to support and make this strategy happen. So this is the plot. The cost? Well, a multinational senior management team of very, very experienced engineering managers, service managers, executives, and this was just below the C-suite, just below the CEO's management group. So the head of this group was in the top management team, or the executive team of this company. So I worked with a very skilled and experienced coach and facilitator called Mikael Göte, a Swedish company called Crisp, and then yours truly, somewhat experienced, somewhat skilled executive who have been working with strategy myself for quite a while. So the script. 3 half-day workshops. This was online. This was right in the middle of the pandemic, so we had to use Miro. We had to use Teams. Don't use Teams if you can avoid it. Sorry to say, we had very big problems with that, but we didn't let that stop us. Miro is pretty okay. But the idea is to, do this online with good tooling. Normally you would do this in a room with a whiteboard, because that's much more easy if you can get all the people in the same room and generate a lot of energy. But we couldn't do that because there was a pandemic going on. One more important thing, we wanted the people to do some homework or fieldwork in pairs and as a group to do strategy, to practice strategy, not just read about it or hear someone else talk about it or get McKinsey or someone to tell them the strategy. So this was important. Also, talk to the stakeholders, the key stakeholders. Are we on the right track? Do we feel that this is the right way of doing this? So it was not only about the strategy or the technology or the business, it was about, getting this management group to learn and do strategy on their own. So, Act 1, the plot is starting to build. That was about agreeing to collaborate. So I'm telling you the full story here. How did we get to agree? Well, talk about this wonderful tool that will help us visualize strategy, help us to make the right decisions, help us to build the right capabilities, and show how this Wardley Mapping visualization can help you connect with this 70-page slide deck and what you're going to do in your daily work, in your daily business. And then use a concrete example. Okay, what is this Wardley Mapping thing? What could be useful? How could it be used to decide what to build, what to buy, and what to outsource? This is a typical question for many large companies. What's our core? What should we do ourselves? What should we buy? And what should we outsource to others? So this was sort of the initial first act. I mean, should we really collaborate on this? And now I'm going to tell you how I will show you the presentation we used actually in this meeting. So this is the real presentation. I've sort of anonymized which month this was, or which day it was, and which year it was. And it's BigCorp, so I won't tell you which company it is unless you buy me lots of beers at some nice pub later on. Perhaps I will tell you. But anyway, visualizing the business environment to guide strategic choices, because to me strategy is about making choices. It's not about laundry lists of action items. It's we do this, we don't do that. That's super important. Set the direction and make choices. And also about developing capabilities, because that's what's their task, right? What capabilities should we have in BigCorp in this part in order to be able to make this strategy that came from the C-suite happen? White sheet of paper. Ideally, would have been a whiteboard, but there was no whiteboard because this was an online meeting. So visualize evolution and guide choices. That's what Wardley Mapping will help us with. What do our customers need? Where's our market position? Where's competition today and tomorrow? Because there's an evolution, right? Things don't stand still. Where's technology today, tomorrow? Where do we focus? What do we do and what do we skip? What moves do we want to make? Because if technology and business is moving, we want to be moving. Because if we're standing still, competition and customers move away from us. For example, this typical example that BigCorp was trying to resolve. What do we do ourselves in-house? What do we buy off the shelf? And what do we outsource to partners? Then, of course, depending on that choice, we may have capabilities in-house, or we may want to build, train ourselves, learn, because this is important for us. This is core to what we do in BigCorp. And then you can start thinking about, how do we work? Should we work in classical ways? Should we work in modern ways? And also, how do we organize ourselves? Do we need to change how we set up teams and stuff? So this can help us with answering all these questions. And if you ask any executive, they will say, this is what I would like. So this is a pretty good pitch. And let's get to the visualization now. So it's a graph. It has a couple of axes. One axis is the value chain, the vertical axis, where you would see visible things at the top and more invisible things at the bottom. Like a user interface would be very visible. So that would be at the top. A customer and customer needs would be at the top, because that's also very visible. At the bottom, we would have things like power. That's like, 2 holes in the wall, or electricity is pretty much invisible to us these days. It wasn't 100 years ago, but now it is. On the other axis, the horizontal axis, you have the evolution. So 4 stages, where the leftmost, Genesis, is something new, something novel, hasn't been done before. I mean, this is the truly innovative stage. After this, you have something that is custom built. You build it according to spec, and you don't know exactly what it is, but you build it and you make it custom for each customer you have. Moving on, product, that's something you can buy. It's multiple copies, or if it's digital, you can buy it in the store, or you can these days buy it digitally. But it's a product that is clearly defined and pretty stable in most cases. And then finally, a commodity, something which is very much in existence everywhere. You don't even think about it. You think about tap water or electricity. That's a typical commodity. And how about an example right about now? Because I've been keeping you in suspense. So let's take a simple example, starting with the customer. In this case, it's a gamer. It's a gamer who has needs. He or she wants to play. And in order to play, you need a few things. You need a gaming PC or a Mac. You need a console or like a mobile device. Or maybe you need a VR headset from Apple or someone else. Who knows? And here we already start to see these components in this dependency graph. The customer depends on the devices, and a VR headset is more novel, more Genesis than a gaming device or a mobile. You can argue, are they custom built or not? Well, that's a discussion you would have when forming these maps. A gaming PC or a Mac, that's clearly a product, so that's why it's in the product phase. Content. You need content, you need a game. And the content needs to be new and novel and innovative and in the Genesis space, because otherwise, who wants to play the same game again? That's not really what gaming is all about. You need great, compelling, innovative, cool content. So that's why it's in the Genesis space. You need a distribution network. You need your CDNs. You need your gaming engines. You need your gaming platform. You need content APIs, dev tools, identity management, data center, compute, and all the way down to power. So this is a simple value chain of components that deliver value at the top to the customer who wants to play games, all the way down to a commodity thing, which is power. Then we can discuss, well, is dev tools, compute, data center, identity managed, is it product or custom built? Is it more to the left or more to the right? Well, that's part of the process. You discuss and debate that. And by having it visual, it's much more easy to talk about it and see it, because you get to see the same picture. You paint the same picture together when you do these kind of exercises. And that's the beauty of of the Wardley mapping, as with all visualization. So we take the example of gaming, and you wonder what the red parts is, and I will tell you about that. So in this case, this specific example, the company wanted to focus on these areas. You know, skip the content, do the VR headset, do the console and mobile, and get the distribution network. That was their strategic choice. They could have chosen to be a content provider. They could have chosen to make gaming PCs, but they didn't. They made a strategic choice of, you know, these areas. Then the red arrows, those are expected market changes. That's the evolution. You would have your gaming engine going more towards becoming a product or even a commodity further down the line. So as a gaming company, maybe you want to focus more on the content and less on your gaming platform and your gaming engine over time, because this is product and business evolution. And you can make choices. Well, we're going to do the gaming engine in-house still. We're going to do the gaming platform in-house still. But these things we buy off the shelf, because that's not our core business anymore. Maybe it was 5 years ago, but tomorrow and 5 years down the line, it's not. And then some things you outsource or just, you know, power you, well, cloud and stuff. Then, what capabilities do you need in your company to do this? Well, if you're going to outsource things, you need the capability of procure things. So you need to be pretty good at this. You can call it best practice. And in order to buy things, you also need good procurement. Maybe you don't need the best practice because it's slightly easier to buy a product than to outsource things to a partner, but still you need to have that capability to be able to be a good buyer of either products or of services. And then when it comes to what you've chosen to do yourself, well, development in this case, you need to be pretty good at developing things. And well, you choose to do content, but that's not your primary focus. So you need to be okay in this case with the content, but that's not where you need the best practices. That's for the development as such. And finally, it's people. People doing this, drawing this map together, and understanding the context, and, you know, showing this to themselves in order to make those choices and understand what we're going to do. Yeah, and the final slide of that little presentation to BigCorp was a few references, blogs, books, and videos, and that was it basically. And apparently they liked it because there was an act 2. It wasn't cancelled after the first act. So we moved on to do this collaboration with BigCorp and this management group. So, well, we need to start somewhere. What is strategy? What is Miro? What is this Wardley Mapping canvas? So do a recap of what strategy is all about, the what, the why, the how. Learn the Miro tool for visualization and collaboration, because that's an important part of the Wardley Mapping practice, that you collaborate visually. And if you're online, then you need to use the best possible tool to do that. Normally I would use a whiteboard, but, well, Miro is a digital whiteboard, right? And then, of course, preparing a Wardley mapping, using this simple canvas, you know, purpose, scope, user needs, value chains, what you just saw on the previous 2 slides, doing that together with this group of senior managers. So again, I show you the presentation that we used, strategy, why, what, and how, and capabilities. So why strategy? Let's start with why this is important, you know. The world is moving, and the rate of change will never be slower than today. So you want to be able to sustainably thrive in these turbulent times. And you can illustrate this with this great wave of Kanagawa. It's not a tsunami, actually, it's a freak wave. And if you're a sailor, you don't want freak waves. That takes you off guard. And now it's even faster because, you know, it's digital. So bits and bytes move faster than atoms. So it's, you know, a big shift. So it's even more important to know what you want, what choices to make, and what directions to move in, and not get bogged down into details too early. So what is strategy really? So this is Simon Wardley's definition. He's a great guy. He invented Wardley Mapping, the art of shaping an environment to gain a desirable outcome. So shaping, you want to do something to create an environment where you succeed together with your customers and your stakeholders. You know, success is a desirable outcome, and then you can measure that in, you know, community growing or profit or making the world a better place. And then how do you do it? How do you do strategy? And if you ask me, I would say step one is to secure that you're singing from the same hymn sheet, that you have the same view of the situation, you have this situational awareness, and then you need to observe, get data, and have a shared understanding of that, because my picture might not necessarily be the same as your picture, and then we're not singing from the same hymn sheet. So secure this situational awareness. It's so easy to just, you know, make quick decisions and act quickly, because we all want action, right? We want to make things happen. But it's easier if we have sort of got a coherent, call it aligned view on what's going on. Then having that, we can start discuss, okay, what direction do we want to go? What do we do and what don't we do? What do we skip? And also doing that together, because then we have built the engagement and the motivation by involving people in the decision, in this choice. Step 3 would then be to start act and make decisions in line with that direction. And if people know what is the direction, you can delegate a lot of responsibility and empower people with freedom and responsibility to do the right thing. And that's pretty much like the Danes play football. You know, you have a game plan, you have your strategy, and then you have brilliant players that take you all the way to win the European Championship, as they did in Stockholm back in 1992. So that's a good example, I think. And then, of course, repeat this. Step 1 to 3, repeat regularly. It's not a one-off thing. It's not a 5-year plan. So doing this quarterly, perhaps, you know, make sure that you have the situational awareness, that you have the right direction. You can tune and tweak that. And then you take decisions and act in accordance with this, just like the Danish national football team. In real life, strategy is very straightforward. You pick a direction and you implement like hell. Who said that? Anyone remembers? One guy up the middle there? Yeah, who was it? What? Who said it? I don't know. Okay. It wasn't you. It was Jack Welch, infamous in some circles, famous in other circles. But I like the idea of, you know, make some choices, pick a general direction, and then you do stuff. Just do it, the Nike motto, right? Capabilities, that's a very abstract word. So we defined it, you know, ability or capacity of an individual or an organization. So what you need to do to reach a certain outcome. So still a bit abstract, but, you know, the ability to do something, to put it simply. So I won't go into all the details here, but, you know, it's not processes, it's not services, it's not functions, it's not technologies. It's your ability to do something, like procurement. You want to buy or outsource things, then you need to have the ability to buy stuff. You need to learn and practice that. So that's a capability in this sense. And that was the whole idea of this exercise for BigCorp, that what capabilities would they need to make this strategy happen. Yeah, Miro basics, doing hands-on exercises individually, very important. I mean, you need to practice, you need to learn, and that takes some effort. I won't go into the details. This is a good help. This is a Wardley Mapping canvas from a guy called Hired Thought on Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days. So it helps you. It's like a mental checklist, or actually physical or digital checklist. So purpose, what is your purpose? And what is the scope? How do you limit what you're going to do? Then you start talking about your users. Step 4, what are their needs? Step 5, you build like a dependency graph, starting from user needs all the way down to electricity, or where you want to stop. And then you map that out on this evolution axis. Is this component genesis, or is it a product, or is it custom made, or is it utility? And that's it basically. 6 steps, but it can take some time and effort and energy because you don't normally do these things. As with anything new, it takes some time and practice. But this is a very, very helpful tool. Okay, do it in these steps. That will help you to come to conclusion. And of course, we did this. No, if we would have been in the real world, we would have had sticky notes and we would have a whiteboard or even a full room with a white wall or whatever that's called in English. Starting with, you know, the wisdom of the crowd, the wisdom of the people in the room. Okay, what is our purpose? So we get alignment on that. So it's not only the purpose of the head of the group, and then they limit the scope. So, you know, do this exercise together, agree on what users to focus on, because there might be different segments and we can't do everything at once. So let's agree on what users and what needs would they have, so that again we see the same picture, and it's easier to you know, having done these things, you know, purpose, scope, users and user needs, it's much easier to build this dependency graph, the value chain. Then it's tricky to map it out and get agreement. Is this genesis? Is it very novel? Is this custom built? Is it product? Or is it a commodity? That can be a hard discussion, but you want to have these hard discussions because maybe someone has a unique perspective and sees something that no one else sees. And that's super important. And a lot of companies go wrong there, especially big companies, because they think top management has all the answers and knows everything. Well, guess what? They don't. Yeah, we're moving on. Act 3, preparing a Wardley map together. And the key word here is together. So we recap the capabilities, the definitions, the value chain, and this Wardley mapping canvas, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we did it. And the key thing to avoid was going into details and actions before we had this situational awareness, this common understanding of the context, and we have made the strategic choices, because many people are very action-oriented, and that is a good thing. But if you just take action without knowing where you're going, you can go off a cliff, and that's not where you want to go. So there was an element of homework, and you know, executives and senior managers are very, very busy. So we had to put in like a scheduled thing for homework Monday mornings between 8 and 10, 10:30. So the manager of this group or this team, you know, put into their Outlook calendars. I guess it must have been Outlook because they were using Teams. So they had a slot there. Okay. Homework or fieldwork. I think we called it fieldwork. Homework sounded a bit. Fieldwork was good. Let's try this. Let's, you know, build those value chains from the agreed user and the agreed user needs, and then taking it all the way down to power. And we wanted to get all these unique perspectives, because in this team, people had different backgrounds and they were used to different technologies, and they had, you know, some worked with more with services, some worked with more with products. So it was important to get this visualized, because it was all in their heads, right? And that's a good starting point, but that's not good if you're going to do a strategy and you're going to collaborate. If people have heads and their words, it's much more easy with pictures and visualizations and illustrations. So I can't show you the details, obviously, because this is high strategic importance for BigCorp, so I have sort of anonymized it. But just so you get the flavor, after taking those value chains that people had done in their fieldwork, we started to map those components out. And you see here, you can't see what's on the yellow stickers, but we have placed them. Okay, this is custom built, this is product, and this is utility. So we selected one specific user, one specific use case, if you will, and built this Wardley map, and showing where things were in these evolutionary stages. Because when you have that and everyone agrees on it, I mean, moving the yellow stickers back and forth, then it's much easier to say that, maybe this thing to the left, that's pretty important, it's novel, maybe that's what we should do. And these things on the right, maybe we shouldn't do those things. Even if we're super good at them, maybe there are others who can do this better than we do. Maybe we should focus on what is unique and novel, and not build a power plant or something, unless you're a power grid company, which they weren't. Yeah, so time for strategic decisions, time to decide. Again, repeat, what are the capabilities? What is the Wardley map? What is the evolution of technology and business? And again, do we have a common understanding of this? Do we agree? Are things in the right location? And then, what should we build? What should we buy? What should we outsource based on this common understanding of the world as visualized in this nice dependency graph called a Wardley map? And again, don't go into details, don't go into actions until we have this common situational awareness and we have made the choices. Then we can start to define what exactly we should do. Okay, how should we learn this capability? How we need training, or we need workshops and whatnot. But we need to agree first what choices we should make. So again, no details in this map, but it's a business to consumer service where we have the build, buy, and outsource decision in color here. So you see the light blue and the purple. These are color codings for agreements then. Okay, this is something we should build, this is something we should buy, and this is something we should outsource. And this might look very simple, but if you ever worked with senior managers or executives, you know they have very strong opinions and not always weakly held. So getting these things up on in this case, a Wardley map helps, because then you can challenge in a friendly way, okay, is this really custom built? Isn't it a product, or isn't this a commodity? So that helps the discussion forward in a very, very good way. You can discuss the object, you can discuss the map. It's not me versus you, my arguments versus your arguments, or my story versus your story. It's like, is the map correct, or as correctly as we can build it? And how do we improve the map so we can make better decisions strategically? So then we took a selected technology component and we changed the evolution axis slightly. So if you see, it's not novel, custom-built product and commodity. So here we wanted to see the evolution of sort of knowledge or understanding in BigCorp. So here, few people in the world have this capability. That's a new thing. Few people in BigCorp have this capability. Well, sort of similar to custom built. Some people in our part of BigCorp, you know, remember it's a big corporation, so you know that's rather big part of BigCorp, have this capability. Or everyone who needs it in our part of BigCorp has this capability. So from this previous map, we zoomed in on one specific technology component to understand where are we as BigCorp. And you know, you see the results here. Few people in BigCorp have this capability, and guess what? Then you can start to take action. Trainings, workshops, or what do we do so that we get the right number of people to understand this, which is where we want to go in the future in our strategy. And of course, if you have something where everyone who needs it knows about it, well, that's a happy place. That shows that you've made a good strategic decision, potentially. And, well, we got some feedback from the participants. They had never done this before. Very few of them had worked with strategy before. They were great at making strategy happen. And normally they got some slide deck and they did their best. So this was a new experience. And this is some of the feedback. I won't go into all the details, but you know, these are verbatim comments from the participants, from these senior managers and executives, what they thought about it. You know, good to have a common framework to set the scene, guide the discussion, thought-provoking model. What are the questions we're trying to answer? Going back to purpose. What's our purpose here? What's the scope? So it forces you to do that before moving on. And that's very easy to miss out because if people are very action-oriented. Help us take the bigger picture first. Very good. How to progress? I mean, you need to list the big questions and get agreement on those. Because if you don't have agreement on those first big questions, you will diverge in your actions and your decisions later on. The model helps us to think. Yeah, that's pretty good. I was pretty happy when I saw that. That was the whole idea. And insights and advice on how to tackle the future. Well, that's pretty good as well. And now you want to know how the story ended? Well, to be continued. The BigCorp, this group, they're happy with their results. They are continuing to use it, and maybe there will be a forthcoming talk about that. We'll see. We'll see. To be continued, as they say in the movies. Some learnings. Well, it was COVID times, so yeah, quirks with Miro and Teams and stuff. And as facilitators, it's super important to have your script and be prepared, because if you are, you can improvise. Context matters, and it's good. I mean, diversity is good. You know, people from different countries, different services, different technologies, different sexes, and whatnot. But then having the Wardley Map to sort of galvanize and get this harmonization of perspectives is very, very important. And we were struggling, to be completely honest, with everyone wanted to get into the details too quickly. Because you know the details, that's what you work with every day. And we wanted to make people see the big picture first, so they were not, you know, missing out the forest for all the trees. So this was really, really hard. Probably the hardest part of it. And then, of course, practice, in the sense of practicing, is super important. Learning by doing. Not have someone else do your strategy for you, and then you just execute and make it happen. I mean, doing it. Doing those fieldwork things, read, watch, prepare, together, I mean, in pairs. So we told them, let's pair you up, because it was this friendly peer pressure then to do something. And we didn't talk so much about the model. We didn't talk about Wardley mapping this or that. Okay, we were just, you know, getting into it and doing it and proving its value. And that's much easier if you're in a room with a whiteboard, because you just start sketching. Okay, what's the customer? What are their needs? What's the purpose and scope? And what do you need in order to fulfill that need? What components do we need? And then you just draw it. And you get a first draft, which is completely wrong, of course, but the whole idea is to start somewhere, not talk about the theory, just draw it on a whiteboard. I think we skipped this one because I want to leave time for Q&A. This is in the presentation, and you can take a look at it. But it's a Wardley map. It's very meta here, because it's a Wardley map of the sort of blockers and challenge and friction that you would have on doing strategy in any organization, I would say. And I think we skipped this, and yeah, you can take a look at it later on. But obstacles don't block the path, they are the path. If there were no friction, you know, that's not life, that's nirvana or paradise. That's the life and the way we live. So it's how you handle it, that's the important thing. Q&A, thank you.